The threat from climate change is serious, it is urgent, and it is growing. Our generation's response to this challenge will be judged by history.
Climate change is talked about so exhaustively that some people lose sight of just how urgent it is. Before long, it will be too late. We let our trees get torn down, we let our air get polluted, and even as the effects are harming the earth, we still can't find the will to care about it. The complacency of our past has led to the urgency of our future. June 23, 1988 marks the day when climate change became recognized as a national issue. But even before then, scientists estimate that humans started to influence the climate as early as the 1830s, 158 years before being officially recognized. It started with the theory of global cooling, the belief that the collection of aerosols and other chemicals would begin to reflect sunlight away from Earth and lead to another ice age. This was combined with another theory, the theory of global warming, the thought that greenhouse gases would trap and absorb the heat provided by the sun, leading to the Earth heating up. From these two theories, combined with other scientific evidence, the theory of climate change emerged. In the past 100 years, the global temperature has risen by 1 degree Celsius, about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and furthermore, the ocean has risen about 6 inches. Although this doesn't seem like much, it only takes a few degrees to change so many aspects of the world we live in.
Who has been involved in climate change research for 17 years, as well as recipient of 2 different statewide organizations as a Mississippi Conservation Educator of the Year, believes we are failing to tackle climate change in a great enough capacity. He states that we are seeing the destruction of many of our most pristine environments right here in North America, but it is being written off as a ranting of liberal environmentalists. My question deals with conservation and its very definition. Are we not to conserve what our Creator has given us, whatever our underlying faith may be? Are we not called in the Bible to be good stewards of His creation?
In 2016, it seemed the world was finally ready to take steps towards tackling the issue.
The Paris Agreement was formed. A collaboration of 196 countries agreed on a long-term goal to keep the global temperature below a 3.6 Fahrenheit increase from the pre-industrial revolution era, while further pursuing a 2.7 Fahrenheit limit.
These goals would require substantial effort from the parties involved, most notably top contributors like the United States, China, and India, who made up about 50% of the world's carbon emissions. If these goals could be reached, or surpassed, it would reduce the danger climate change poses by a large margin. The agreement acknowledges that to achieve these goals, emissions need to be reduced as fast as possible. The Paris Agreement, despite its laudable intent, is not without flaws. It faced criticisms, mainly in part due to the fact that the treaty lacked any way to bind parties to fulfilling their goals. As it turned out, these criticisms were not unfounded. 2 studies published in 2016 found that none of the largest, more industrialized nations had implemented any of their envisioned plans, nor had they reached their goals set by the agreement. Further criticisms pointed out that even if all parties had met their goals, it still would not be enough to keep below a global temperature increase of 3.6 Fahrenheit. Clearly, the Paris Treaty left much to be desired. The belief that countries would voluntarily reduce their emissions to acceptable levels was optimistic but flawed. Although we finally had a worldwide agreement to curb our carbon emissions in an effort to slow global warming, we still lacked the care to fully commit to it, and it was largely ineffective. But at the very least, our world leaders were beginning to treat it as an issue worth fixing. But after Trump's election in 2016, he declared that the United States would withdraw from the Paris Treaty.
Met with near unanimous worldwide criticism, the United States' withdrawal was seen as a complete slap in the face to efforts to combat climate change.
Trump intended to expand the United States coal and oil industries and create new jobs in those fields. By protecting our coal and oil industry without expanding clean and renewable energy sources, Trump creates short-term benefits at the expense of possibly devastating long-term consequences. As one of the most influential countries in the world, as well as the second highest contributor to global carbon emissions, the United States sets an example to the rest of the world. Instead of leading the world in combating the monumental threat climate change poses, our country put forth an embarrassingly short-sighted opinion of climate change, making a mockery of the worldwide effort. The Treaty of Paris was ineffective, but at least it was a start to a more focused effort. The United States withdrawal revoked $3 billion of funding towards climate change research, as well as meaning other countries would have to cut down even more on their emissions to make up for the United States. countries that already were not meeting their goals. Thankfully, following the 2020 presidential election, President-elect Joe Biden stated that his first action as president would be to rejoin the Paris Treaty. While this is great news for the rest of the world, it doesn't mean much if the set goals are still not met. It will take more than simply rejoining to fix our mistake. This time, we must actually commit to change. This is an issue we must take seriously.
Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress. 70 to 90% of coral reefs will die at 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, expected to happen by only the year 2030. The past 5 years have been the hottest years ever recorded, unsurprisingly, as we continue to dump 5,130 million metric tons of CO2 into the air every year. The Paris Treaty is not enough. Empty promises and goals are not enough. We need to be 100% dedicated to change if we want to avoid a potentially catastrophic future. It's not a world I want to inherit, and that sentiment needs to be shared by everyone.